Welcome to the Storytelling That Sticks for Business and Life podcast. I'm your keynote, TED Talk, and story coach, Doug Stevenson. In this podcast series, I'm going to share with you some simple and practical storytelling techniques and hacks that will make you stand out from the competition so that you can get paid to speak, or to give a TED Talk that goes viral, or to simply tell your story in a way that makes a difference in the world. You'll learn how to choose, craft, and deliver stories that stick. Personal stories from your amazing life, business stories, leadership and sales stories, stories that are marketable and memorable, stories that sell you and your product or service. My job as your virtual keynote and story coach is to help you design and deliver stories and speeches that get people to do what you want them to do, or to consider a new perspective. If you're serious about using storytelling to advance your career, to get paid to speak, or simply to get your message across in a more engaging and compelling manner, this podcast is for you. All right, well, let's get started. So everybody, welcome back to the Storytelling That Sticks for Business and Life podcast. I'm Doug Stevenson, your host and virtual story coach. And today I am joined by Pegine. And she doesn't need any other name because she's just like Sharon, Oprah, and Shakira. Pegine is a life force of her own. Pegine is a professional speaker. She primarily works with women leaders to inspire and empower them, to inspire and empower other people. So Pegine, welcome.
Doug, I'm so excited. This is a huge treat for me to be with you. You know, storytelling is such an important craft, but the art of it is so important. I love your work and teaching people the art of storytelling, which is, unique and challenging and important.
This is a unique and powerful woman who steps out into the world and says, this is who I am. This is what it's going to be. Let's go. So tell me, how did you grow into this amazing personality and expression of yourself? How did you, over the years, finally get to the place where you said, you know what? This is me. They can take it or leave it, but this is me. I'm just going to go out there and give them my best shot.
Great question. I would honestly say that through my lifetime, I have struggled to hide who I am to make everybody else comfortable. So I have always been, from the time I was a little girl, very enthusiastic, very out there, I was the one that would like make things exciting. As a matter of fact, Christmas morning, my family will to this day, they're like, oh God, we're not going to go near Pegine for Christmas morning, because I used to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning with pots and pans till I was about 10, 11 years old and bang the pot. Christmas, wake up, Santa was here. I mean, I was like that all the time. And there was a really important thing for me, an awareness for me. I like waking up like that every morning. I really love being joyous and enthusiastic and creating just a space where people can flourish. I really, really do. So growing up, I had some chaotic growing up, but at the same time, I was also known, my mom and my aunt, we all lived together, and they were single women, and I would do things that would just make them laugh. I would, not like a comedy, I would do stories. So I had this whole thing that they would laugh and laugh with tears running down their face, because I would do this whole thing. I don't know where I picked it up. I don't know how I picked it, but I would had this character called the French woman. And I would walk in, imagine, two women back then, they were probably about 40 years old. My mom was a smoker. They were working jobs. And I would walk in and go, hello, everybody. I'm here for you. Hello. It's just practice walking now. And I'd walk, and this is how the French walk. And I go, and I walk in your cheeks. and do this. And I would have them play with me like that. I don't know why, but they would laugh and laugh and laugh. And I was trying to, I know that I was doing it so that they would be relieved of stress, right? They would, and it was just what I did. And when in high school, I got involved. I was a troublemaker. So I don't know if you know any about my story, but I I lived two lives. My parents got divorced. It was a nasty, violent, terrible time. I became a very angry kid, a teenager at 13. I was really an angry kid. My sister was a local junkie and prostitute. And then I also had this other life. So my mom didn't want me to go down the same path that my sister went. So she also signed me up for Girl Scouts. So I was in Girl Scouts and I was in as a New York City girl gang. I was in both at the same time. And I was uh and my nickname was called La Loca, the crazy one, because I learned in New York that I can thrive and survive in a really, really tough junior high school, really tough. I don't think that people can relate to it in other places, but it was filled with gangs, different gangs, and it was rough and tough. But I found out that nobody will come after you, pick on you, or taunt you if they don't know what you're going to do next. If you're crazy, they leave you alone. So we had staircases going up, it was 6 flights. So we didn't have these rectangle long schools and high schools like they do now around the country. Ours was straight up like an office building. And you would walk up the stairs and you can feel on the back of your neck when one of the gangs was going to do something to you. Maybe take your books. They used to have hat pins. They would press the hat pins up your butt. You could feel when something was going to happen. Just your neck up there. So go up, and I would walk up the stairs, to when the stairs go around with the little platform, and I would go up there, and I could feel, and I turn around and go, "The sun will come out tomorrow. Wake up, everybody, to tomorrow." And people just kept going like, "Oh, yeah, right." You can't do that every day, Doug. So you had to do some other days where you were like a tough gang member. So I would walk up and get to the platform, still have that thing. I go, bring it on. You think you're going to get me? Come on. And of course, nobody ever bothered me because they didn't know which Pegine were they going to get. And that was part of my life, was learning using these techniques. Kicked out of my first high school, went to a second high school, and then um, found a high school where they had theater arts. Well, I didn't find it. My mom found it. It was the only school that would take me. And so I went, had a theater teacher who said to me, oh my God, in high school, she said, "You think you're so tough. You think you're such a leader. You think you're in charge of everything." And I went, yeah. I mean, I really had that attitude. She goes, "You're in charge of the school play. Everybody's coming to see you." And it was the first time anybody put me in charge of something. And I took, my favorite show was Grease. So I wrote parody called Grime. And that's when I was really introduced to theater, storytelling, performance, the power of staging. And so that's how I started in terms of using theater in my life. And then I have a whole bunch of rest of stories about my life. Basically where I came from, then moved up, worked and became a national sales manager, then the director of operations, and president of a company, then social worker. And then Montel Williams, actually met me and heard me and said, "You should become a professional speaker." And I had no idea what that was. And that's how I got to be here with you today.
Wow. Wow. What impresses me about that story is that you're Pegine, and Pegine is a role. But Pegine is also an essence. It's the truth. It's the organic truth of all of those evolutions and all of those roles over the years. You played this role and you played that role and you played acting roles. And it seems to me that you were living in such an environment that you had to play roles in order to survive. And you had to figure out what role is the most powerful for this moment. But eventually, all of those protective roles and all of those difficult roles that you had to play had to slowly drop away when you started to get in front of audiences, because when you're in front of an audience, there's only one role, and that's Pegine.
Right.
And I'm sure you had to kind of sift through the anger and the resentment and the hardness and all of those kinds of things to be able to find the stories and the essence and the vulnerability. Because I don't think growing up you were allowed to be vulnerable. It doesn't sound like
Well,
you were, but
no, it was survival.
as a speaker, you've got to be able to find all of those different levels. So as you evolved out of corporate, because I can't imagine you in corporate, I just can't picture you
Uh,
being a sales manager, but that was a role. You learned how to play it because you are a chameleon speaker. Now that you're in this role of Pegine, you have found your voice, you found your essence. How does that work as a
well,
speaker in
I think that
relation to storytelling?
there's a couple of things that you mentioned that I think are really important. Is yes, I am a chameleon. My mom, but after doing lots of therapy, which I think that every speaker should do, I think every speaker should be going through therapy, because the stage is not your therapy session. The stage is all about the audience and about you bringing insight and wisdom to them because you have evolved. One of the things that I discovered in a discussion with my mom one time was really revealing is the shift of me trying to conform into what will make you comfortable. That shift for me changed when I realized I am Pegine. Now I could fit like water, H2O, you could pour it into different vases, different shapes, and it will conform to the shape, but it doesn't change being water. It just conforms the shape of the vase. So when mom and I had this conversation, it was a real aha to me that I own myself. I love this part of me. I love the expansion. I love the enthusiasm. I love that I'm a leader. I love all those aspects of me. And I've had people over the years. We had a neighbor that used to tell my husband, "Can you put her in a cage? Did she ever come? Can you put her in the cage?" And he was like, "Now that cage would be ripped apart because she will break out of that cage. This is who she is." So, one of the things about being on stage is, and how do you bring who you are on stage with your stories in a way that is relevant to the audience and they can be with you present through your stories. Now, for me, one of the most liberating processes, because when you first get into speaking and you first start being around a lot of speakers, people want you to be like them. They want you to speak like them. Put your hand up here, put your other hand down there, say, or speak like this. "Hello, how are you? Let me speak to you like this because this is what corporate speak sounds like. And if I want to get work with corporations, this is how I have to speak." I could only maintain that for so long. And what I found was I had a really interesting experience. Was the more that I was myself, the more that people wanted more of me. And there were two really so I got in this because Montel Williams, I had been on his show a lot, and he's the one that told me to speak. He said, "Nobody speaks like you. Nobody, I've never heard people talk the way you talk." But I didn't understand what he was talking about. He was talking about my essence. He was talking about my style. I didn't know at that point what that was. Years later, um, well, actually, after 9/11, I was, we all lost our speaking businesses. I had been booked solid for years. I had 3 years out. I had contracts and all this stuff. 9/11 came and there was no so speaking, but I needed to work on my craft. I needed to speak. So I actually started going to the local comedy club, which was one of the best things I ever did. The scariest thing I ever did, but one of the best things I ever did. So doing stand-up comedy in a Jacksonville dive is a whole experience unto itself. But what I learned from that process and going in, I would go on Saturdays, I'd speak on Mondays and Tuesdays. What I learned is I could be really honest on stage with my stories in a way that captivated the audience and had them laughing so hard. They weren't laughing at me, they were laughing at themselves because what they would say is, "Oh my God, that's me. That's me. It's me." So it became a real science for me, a real learning experience. I wanted to understand, how can I, through humor, really allow people to see themselves, relate to themselves, and then see the potential of who they could be. But you have to get to the point being on stage so they can feel, they forget about you, they see that. They see themselves, or they see their coworkers that that's you. That's you. And the coworker's like, "Oh, I was thinking that, but now you're pointing at me. That's kind of embarrassing, but yeah, it is me." So I started using that. And as you can see, I find that storytelling is not just the words. And you know this, Doug, but I don't know if your audience knows. Through doing comedy and stand-up comedy, being in front of a live audience, learning the power of facial expression, learning the power of, lifting up an eyebrow can communicate more. Power of the pause, the power of saying, "Did you see that? Wow." Pause is filled with their personal, audience, their personal experiences is filled in that pause. I don't need to say a lot of words. They're filling in their experience into that silence. I really understand stagecraft of understanding, here's the story. I could stand on this side. I can move to the center and say, and this is what the point of that story was. And then I could go to the on the other side of the stage and I could break the veil by saying, "Did you see what I just did over there? This is for you." Ah, and so I bring that a lot in my craft. But I had to learn. I had to take those courses, do that practice. Certainly, comedy was critical. If you want to get paid in speaking, you got to be funny.
I agree.
Period.
I agree. Audience will pay more for a comedian with very little content than they will for somebody who's absolutely brilliant, has written 12 bestseller books, who's boring as hell. They want to
Correct.
laugh. Now, they want to laugh and learn. It's not just laugh, it's laugh and learn. But what I find most powerful about what you're saying here is that you didn't just grow up naturally formed into this brilliant comedian, brilliant actress. You had an organic talent that is just your essence. You were a wild and crazy kid. You were a clown. You were playful. You were big and bold. But we have to evolve through all of these layers to get to the place. It's almost like I've said about myself, it's like I started out being this amazingly witty, creative, lovely human being that was just joyous. And then I
Mhm.
got scared and I got contracted and I tried to be all of these things to all people. And then I came back around at the end and I was right where I started out, only I owned it. And that's what I think I'm hearing that you did is you found yourself once again in comedy, but you started to learn the technique. And the technique is it's not just words, it's not just talking, it's a three-dimensional experience. You're here, you're here, you're here. It's intentional. There's craft, there's staging, there's rhythm, tempo, volume, there's physical, there's facial. So there's so many things that can only be discovered once you get out of your frigging way and allow yourself to play full out and be as bold and beautiful and brilliant as you are. Because when I look at you, I just think there is no other Pegine. There is no one else. And yet we all seem to think, well, but she's making a lot of money and she's really cool and she's really smart. And if I was more like that, no, 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 you cannot be anybody else. Everybody else is taken. So I
Correct.
love the
That
fact you say, no, I'm Pegine, period. Like, share.
I love what you just said. I think so. I have a something that I teach my the women that I work with, the people that I work with, is to know it, own it, and share it. Know who you are. Really know who you are. Discover who you are. Get excited about who you are. Know, and you can't say it all in just a few minutes, but knowing yourself is really knowing what has always given you joy about you. What has always made you feel amazing? So for me, I love my enthusiasm. I love being excited. I love being joyous. I did not know, and I am smart. I am strategic. I'm all those things. It took me a while to be able to learn those things and start writing about things. So I went from writing my journals about, oh, life is terrible and things are there. Blah. And then I found through teachers, no, start writing what you're grateful for. Start writing love letters to yourself. Start writing love letters, celebrating what makes you you. What you love about yourself, love what you love when you're looking at yourself. I'm not 6'1" and I'm not 120 pounds. But man, I look at myself in the mirror in the morning and I go, oh, I love that I'm fluffy. I love that I can give you a hug and you know you're getting a hug. The other thing that so we have to know it. You have to know it. Then you have to own it. And owning it is being really so thankful and proud that you were brought to this earth. There were lots of sperms that went out and this egg and sperm hit this egg and you managed to survive 9 months to get out of that womb. You are here. You are a miracle. You need to own that. You I don't care how rough and tough your background was. I don't care what happened next week. Today, you have to own who you are and be proud of it. And then the third thing, which is where you said something really important, which was, as we're evolving and growing, we get a little bit afraid to share ourselves with people. But it's in the sharing of who we are that the world expands. And I know I have a thing that I call ping ping. So if I'm in my car and, sometimes we, especially, you could go, oh, things, you could get down, you listen to the news, you could get a little bit down. You could feel like, oh, I have no power over what's happening in the world. This is, how we could get into our head. I say ping ping. I take my ping ping gun, which is this, and I go to the car. Sending you love. You're going to have a great day. Bing. You're making money today. Watch what happens to come to you. Bing, bing. Look at that smile. I just throw this stuff out. That's my energy. Like, bing, 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 bing. I'm sending you blessing. Well, look at you, lady. You look awesome. Bing. And that changes me. And I believe it changes, even though they don't know that I'm sending it to, I truly believe that I'm shooting little stardust on them.
It's interesting to hear you channel this joyous energy, and it's like it's almost too much for you to contain. It has to be shared because it's like You just can't have this sitting around in your house watching TV. You got to get out there. You got to share this because that's who you are. You're that extroverted and that large and that bold human being. And it makes me realize, wow, that's why I gravitated towards the front of the room. That's why speakers gravitate towards the front of the room. It's like, we have to share it. We have to figure out a way to share it. We have to find our stories. We have to find our essence. We have to find our voice, our rhythm, our tempo. But we got to get up there because we can't contain it within ourselves. It's too much. We have this desire to share and to heal, to be of service in the world. And when I'm listening to you, it's like you can't contain it. It's too big for you within your own body. You've got to get up in front of a room somewhere and go, here, have some of this. I got to share it with you. Now,
Absolutely.
I want to shift it into the stories and the technique of stories because we can get up there and we can just improv all over the place and be a big mess and not have any points, not have any lessons and get done.
Right.
Because I gave a speech once where I just was way off track. The whole thing, it was just a big mess. And coming from a theater background where I memorized my lines and did my blocking every night, I walked off after this keynote where I was just a big mess. And I thought, this will not serve. This did not serve them. It did not serve me. I need to work on my craft. I need to get back to craft. So let's talk about story craft. You're a storyteller. Yep. Talk about your craft. How do you approach story? How do you craft story? What is your process?
You're 100% right that you have to have the plan, this setup. And so for me, so I use this, it's a system that enables me to truly get into flow especially from a keynote perspective. So if can you see this okay?
I can see that.
Okay. So this is my system to be able to know where I'm going. It's my map. So I always have the topic at the top, right? So what's the topic? What's the theme? What's the keynote name, right? Then I go here and I say, what is my truth about that topic? What do I know is true that a person in the audience needs to know is true about that title, right? Then I come up here and I go, so what are 3 things that they need to learn about this truth? What are 3 things they need to know? And then I take those 3 things and I break it up. So this would be point 1, point 2, point 3. I start with point 1 and I think about and kind of go back to my own history. How did I learn that point? What moment in my life, or what did I maybe read, or what story did I hear that proved to me this was so, or that I could explain? And I put that story here. And I'll tell you about the specific story. And then I say the story, but then I'll have to write down here. So we could have the story like me being in the gang. Well, I could talk about that story and they'll be totally entertained. But what's the point? So the point is, I have to know my audience. I have to know how to stay out of trouble. I know that I had to create personas to stay safe. So maybe my point there is, are you crafting because you're afraid? Are you crafting because you want to get out there safe? Are you crafting because you want to be promoted? This story has to relate to the point for the audience. And the story has to have a segue to the next point.
Transition.
Right? So this people don't realize how important this transition is.
It's huge.
You got to be able to go from here's the point of this story and let me go on and point of the story, but you still need to learn this skill here. And I do the same thing, right? Here.
Yes.
Sometimes I'll put in, I'm not really keen on sharing data, especially when in my world, my audiences have heard more data wonks come and share the data. I don't need to be the data wonk. I really don't. I can't tell you how many conferences I've gone, and there'll be the speaker before me that talks about some data, the speaker then after me. I don't have to regurgitate that. I need to give them skills. I need to give them takeaways that they're going to be able to use immediately after my speech. And that's what I'm known for. So when I do these points, these are real takeaways. These are real, how do you execute them? And again, I tell the story. And then I go here, and which then leads back to the bottom. And then, is the, so here we are, say the 3 points and then come back to my closing story.
Mm-hmm.
My closing story and my opening story, I often try to make them relatable, or to do and then there's more. So I might start doing the story about being in corporate and how I got promoted, how I got to do my first big sale to Macy's, and why the president gave me that opportunity, which he should never have done. But I have a motto called being bold, brave, seen, heard, and paid well. So you got to take chances. But then I'll say, I won't tell them the whole story that I got promoted to sell Macy's. I'll say, so I walked down the hall and you could hear everybody's door closing, boom, 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 knowing I should have been fired. He's going to get fired. And I went to Ed Saunders' office. He looked straight at me, and I knew I was going to be fired. What I didn't know was that Ed hated firing people. So he had his office manager, and she wasn't there. So he said, come back on Monday. So I will just leave that. People are like laughing. Oh my God, she got away with it. Huh? She did. And I'll go through all of this, and I'll get to the bottom, and I'll say, so let me continue the story. Remember, wait until Monday.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Well, Monday came in early as always to work with the top salesman, Tony, and help him prepare for Macy's. At that moment, Macy's started arriving, 22 buyers. President Ed Saunders was there and checking in with me. Where's Ed? Where's Tony? Where's Tony? And then he got an emergency call. Tony had been in a car accident and was in the hospital. He wasn't coming to sell Macy's. Tony's wife said that Tony said, have Pegine do it. Ed Saunders walked to me and he said, Tony said you got big balls. And snarky, I said, don't have balls. I've got breasts. And he went, cut the crap out. He said that you're the best salesperson. You're going to do the Macy's. Get in there, sell Macy's. So, then everybody goes, oh my God. And I sold more Macy's. I did a bigger sale than anybody had ever done in the history of the company. Right? The audience is that way, but now I've done the rest of the story, because the whole story was about being bold, being brave, being seen, being heard, and being paid well. So that's one way I do it.
Well, I love that graphic. And I love that you shared how strategic you are, how calculated you are, because the best presentations can feel like, where the hell is she going with all this? She's all over the place. She's like all the way over there, and she's all the way over there, and she's got all of this energy, and we're getting swept up into this tsunami of Pegine all over the place. And yet, I am very specifically doing this, leading into this, going over here, wrapping around to this, stopping the story, ending with the story. I love the fact that you are so strategic and so crafty, because what we can glean from this, the people listening to this, is we take one look at you and go, well, she's just wild and nuts and crazy. I mean, look at her. She's just like so uniquely this crazy woman. Crazy Woman with Craft makes a lot of money and changes a lot of lives.
Absolutely. One of the things um, about strategy on stage and the keynote. So I do this. So I take this and then I layer that on with, like if it's a 45-minute speech, for instance, I write one through 45, and I learned. You're the perfect person to talk about this because people won't. You're the perfect person. So I've always been very intrigued with concerts. I don't go to a lot of them. I just get intrigued with how they work on their playlist. How does every concert planfully create their playlist? Because it's all, it's not just the song, but what lights are going to come out and what smoke is going to come out. So there's moods to that playlist. There's clarity. We're going to do a high rock song. We're going to do a ballad. We're going to take people on an excursion using song and using clothing changes. We're going to take them so that really you're there for about an hour and a half max, right? For some of these concerts, but every minute is crafted. So you think, oh, it's just, the band coming out and playing. And it might be the same song they've done over and over, but there's extreme craft in terms of the choosing of the playlist. So I look at this as this is the beginning of my playlist.
Yeah, yep.
And I take those things and I have another sheet that I use that says, so what's the emotion I want them to feel here? Do I want them high? Do I want them soft? Do I want them teary-eyed? Do I want them how am I taking them through the emotional scale so that my audiences go through an experience? So that's why they call it the Pegine experience, because I really craft the experience.
Yes.
I want them, and keep near me. This is, can you see this?
Yes, I
So
see it.
so I keep this near me. This is an emotional scale, right? The little disc. And it gives me a lot of words to know how do I want my audience what emotions do I want my audience to feel during different spots? So do I want them to, do I want them, I don't know how to do it so that you can hear it. Okay. So do I want them to get excited? I lost it somewhere along the way. Do I want them to feel amazed, excited, and joyful? But also, do I want them, to get real? Do I want them to feel guilty? Do I want them to have the feeling of loneliness? Because that's important. If I don't talk about this, then I'm being in make believe la la land of you be happy all the time.
Right.
Get sad. We all get lonely. So I'm kind of taking them into this role list. So that sometimes I have to be very intimate with you. You have to say things that it's only between you and me. I just have to share a truth about it. There are times that I'll get scared and I get lonely and I'm in my room and everybody thinks, oh, you're the star. You're the star. You're insane. But in those moments when I have a negative thought, it hurts. And I don't know who to call. Mom's gone. There's nobody to call. It's then. I want a girlfriend. I want a friend that I could pick up the phone call. Friend that I can rely on. A friend who loves me exactly as I am. Have you ever felt that way? Do you ever feel that way? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about it. So, do you see how I just went into that I bring it down and I'm quiet and I'm intimate and I'm revealing an emotional state
That's the
that I've
ballad.
had.
That was the
Right.
ballad.
That was the ballad. Exactly. So when I'm crafting it, I have to bring these up, because my high is so high that it's exhausting for people. I understand that. I understand that a lot of people in the audience might be here because truth, life is rough. Life is hard. I don't know where they're at, but I know that I've lived this scale. And so when I think of so I break these down into minutes, right? So I might say this is going to be a 3 minute story. This is going to be a, you know, 4 or 5 minute. And so I really balance it out by timing. And then I get clear about what is the emotional state that, what's this roller coaster, emotional roller coaster that I'm taking them on. Because I guess because I've been a therapist for many for years and I work with enough people to know that it is our emotions that guide our behaviors. And if we can help people have a connection with me, and that's really important. And I want to make something really clear. I'm going to put a big asterisk here if I can, if that's okay with you. It's not manipulation. It's in service of my audience that I construct a playlist because it is critically important for my audience that they can use the tactics and tools that I'm teaching so they could transform their lives, that they can use it immediately, 6 months from now, a year from now, that they can absolutely use what I just shared with them, where their hearts have been touched in a very deep way, but they've also been hearing and learning with their minds. That to me is the most powerful thing we could do as speakers.
It reminds me of when you're talking about a band that you love and they come out and they do this concert. They take you on highs and lows, and the lights change, and the lights get intimate, and everybody leaves the stage except one person who stands there with a guitar and does one song all by themselves. And it's all calculated, it's all orchestrated, and it's very much like a symphony of emotion. Like when you listen
Correct.
to a symphony by Bach or Beethoven or Mozart, it goes up and down and it goes slow and fast. And that is the dynamic of a good speech. I've often talked about the
Absolutely.
roller coaster ride. It's like take them up, take them down, go fast, go slow. Well, that's comedy. That's drama. I mean, I come from theater where we theater is designed to manipulate people all over the place. But I don't see manipulation in the negative sense that we have of, I feel like I'm being manipulated. When I go to a rock concert, I basically say, go ahead, manipulate me. I'm here for the taking. I'm here for the taking. When I go to theater and they're going to take me up and they're going to make me laugh and they're going to make me cry, it's like, okay, that's fine. I voluntarily allow myself to be moved, because
Absolutely.
manipulation in the way that we're talking about it is movement. I'm going to move you high. I'm going to move you low. I'm going to move you in. I'm going to move you out. I'm going to move you from head to heart to soul to head to heart to soul. I'm going to take you all over the place because that's what it takes to get people off the dime to change. And at the end of the day, you and I are change agents. We are
Absolutely.
there to make somebody so uncomfortable with their status quo that they finally say, that's it. That's it. I have to make some changes in my life. She has shown me that I have to make some changes in my life. And I can't imagine a better person to do that than you, being up there on stage looking like you look, because you're a brand. You're a
Yeah.
brand. You're a physical, emotional, vocal, storytelling brand, and you're an experience. And I love the fact that you say it's the Pegine experience, because I've never thought of what I do or other people's do as an experience, but it is.
Well, yeah. It's so interesting because my audiences have called it the Pegine experience. And we started hearing that a lot. Started hearing saying, "Oh, you've never heard about? Oh, you have to have the Pegine experience. If you've
Yeah,
not,
they help define our brand, don't they?
they really do." And when they, to me, it's always, of course, now I've been doing it so long, it's just who I am, right? This is how I do what I do. This is how I think about it. This is how I produce it. And it's also knowing how the responsibility of knowing we are speaking to this audience, and we really are taking responsibility for the journey that we're taking them. And so now when I go in, I'm very aware. I look around there. I always go in very early, and I go before the AV team comes. I want to be there before anybody else shows up. I want to get on the stage, and I literally go, I own this room. This is my room. I am the commander in chief of this room. What happens in this room is all on me.
I want to
Yeah.
shift a little bit now because I want to kind of come to a place of closure here. And I'm thinking about everybody who gets to the front of the room, but a lot of people, and especially because you work with women and women leaders, about owning themselves, owning their power, their presence, their voice, their amazingness, their brilliance. When they give a presentation in front of a room full of men,
Mhm.
because corporate America is a male dominated thing. I mean, I've
Absolutely.
spoken in it, you've spoken in it, and I've spoken in those boardrooms, and I've seen what it's like for a lot of the people. And a lot of times somebody will come up to me and say, but Doug, I go into this room and it's a bunch of these male executives, and I've got like 10 minutes to make a presentation, and it's intimidating as hell. What do you say to them to own themselves at the front of that room?
Oh, this is great. So, just so that the audience can have a perspective of my experience of doing this. So, I've spoken in front of generals and admirals. I've been in very uh, small rooms with very, very powerful people. I've definitely have spoken to corporate with, I used to do a lot of work with men. And so here's what I know, and here are some things that I'm going to share with people that you all need to know if you're presenting, even if it's a 10-minute speech, even if what you're doing is pitching an idea to the people in the audience. So you're crafting you're working with Doug and you're having your storytelling, but there are definite pieces, and especially I'll talk to the women, men do that should be doing this too. First off, you get there really early. You find out the room that you're presenting in. You get to that room, even if it's a boardroom, even if it's always locked during the day. You go to the secretary then in charge and you just say, I just need to get a feel for the room. Can you just let me in? Now, you're going to go room, let's say there are 12 seats, 16 seats, a big boardroom, 25 seats. I want you to go in the room and I want you to take your hand, and I call it swiping. I want you to swipe the top of the chair. Every chair, you swipe it, and you swipe the chair and you say, I got you. Swipe there, I own you. Swipe the chair, I got you. Swipe the chair. Yes, I am. I am the one. Swipe the chair, swipe the. So you are you've swiped every single chair that you're going. Number two is that you have to remember that when you speak, you are in command. You are in charge of that room. They are not in charge of you. And for women, you might get offended. I really don't care. I just know I teach my executive women to do this and it works. You are a dominatrix. You must take on. So I always ask my women, wear a leather skirt, wear a leather jacket. Make sure you get yourself a keychain that has like a little whip. You have to own the fact that you are dominating that room. That 10 minutes is your 10 minutes. And so you want to make sure that you think of yourself as a dominatrix. So you're walking in with attitude. You're walking in with a sense of purpose. You're walking in with a sense of, you need me. You need me. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. You need my thoughts. You need my idea. You need this. That's why I'm here. So we do that right beforehand. When people come in, so wherever chair that you're going to be sitting in, you always sit at the table. And you always make sure, even though you're the presenter and they say, oh, you're going to, Mary, you're the guest speaker, you never go in, never, 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 never. I don't care what you say. Do not come in with a pen and paper to write notes. You are not a schoolgirl. You're a leader. So when you're prepping, you're just going to have that, and you take your arms and you spread them out a little bit more. And you put them in it. Do you know Mrs. Maisel?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a thing, and it's probably going to annoy you, but she and her manager would say "tits up" to prepare. So you're
I love that. Tits up. But right before
so
she goes on stage, tits up, which is
that's right,
a
tits up. So
affirmation.
it's the way of saying I'm in charge. So and when you're going this, you're putting your arms out and you're taking up space. The third thing that's really important for women, and there's been so many studies that the highest paid women, the highest paid women in movies, the highest, all speak with a deep voice. So you have to be very careful with your voice. So I say go into the bathroom beforehand and you go, hmm, bring your voice down a little bit. You can't go in with the voice that you would use to coo a baby. You have to go in with the commanding voice of, Doug, put that candy bar down. You will eat dinner time. We need that commanding voice, that lower voice. So you need to practice that before you get in. Go
Lower
and be able
register.
to do that.
Yeah.
So those are some tips when you're presenting in those kinds of groups to prepare yourself so they can hear what you have to say.
And I would also encourage people to really prepare like crazy, that your 10 minutes is 10 minutes. It's not 12 minutes. It's not
Oh,
8 minutes. It's
yeah.
like you have written, rehearsed, prepared, whatever, that your 10 minutes is 10 minutes. I have seen how people shrink in those moments and they almost apologize with their body language. And it's like, you're not going to get anywhere if you don't use the Pegine energy of, I'm here, this is what I know, let's go. And there's no apology. I've often said, when I get in front of an audience, there's no apology and there's no brag. I'm
Right.
not going to apologize for what I know and who I am, but I'm also not going to brag about how amazing I am. Because you know what? You can say I'm amazing. I'm not going to say I'm amazing. But I have
You
some
know,
amazing things that I want to share with you today. And I hope they're going to make a difference. No brag, no apology. Let's go.
I love that because that is when you're speaking with your essence, when you're speaking with clarity because you know where you're going to go, you have your plan, you know where it's going to happen, you are prepared with where you're going and how you're going. You don't have to say, I'm the best at what I do or that I've had this. The way you're speaking communicates that. The way you show up on stage communicates that. You're the way you have eye contact with people communicates that. And if you're having nervous energy, then before you ever speak, I train this with women all the time, go into the bathroom and do duck hands. Duck hands is when you're doing like this and you're shaking out every piece of energy, you're shaking it all, you got get it all out so that when you're in front of them, there is a sense of ease and grace and flexibility and awareness, and you're just on point. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with so much of what you said, Pegine. It's been an experience to be with you today. I am so glad that you chose to share your wisdom and your knowledge and your amazing Pegine energy with us. So thank you, thank you, thank you so much. How can people get in touch with you and inquire more about you?
Sure. So there are two places. One, certainly go to pegine.com if you're in charge of any conferences or women's groups, send that page. On the bottom of the page, you can get my free book of 50 Secrets of Feisty, Fearless Female Leaders. The second page is Team Pegine, TEAMPEGINE.com. And that's where Doug is a coach and I'm a coach. I only coach women speakers, experts, and authorities on that page. But you can sign up for, and everybody can sign up for if they wanted, 5 stages of speaking. So a lot of people don't realize the business of speaking. You just don't walk in. There are stages that you have to go. You have to transform over those stages, and you can learn about those stages by just going to teampegine.com with the 5 stages of speaking, and you'll see a lot of information. I have a blog post that gives techniques about how to speak and how to market yourself and how to run the business of speaking.
Wow. So much value in this time that we've spent together. So once again, on behalf of all of my listeners of the Storytelling That Sticks for Business and Life podcast, thank you, thank you, thank you. Be well and carry on. All right, well, that's it for this episode. If you feel that you learned something valuable today, something that you can use that will make your story stick, stories that make you and your business memorable, marketable, and monetizable, there are 3 things I'd like you to do. First, click on the follow or subscribe button and leave a review wherever you listen. And second, share this podcast with your friends and coworkers, your email list, and on social media. And third, connect with me on LinkedIn. And when you're ready to get serious about taking your stories to the next level, or if you have an important speech, presentation, or TED Talk coming up, or if you want some guidance on how to make the transition to becoming a professional speaker, let's schedule your free 30-minute coaching session where we can get to know each other and see if we're a good fit. And as always, I'd love to hear from you with your questions and comments. Let me know that you're out there listening and learning. You can send an email with your questions, comments, and suggestions to Deborah@DougStevenson.com. That's Deborah, DEBORAH, @DougStevenson.com. Hey, thanks for listening. Until the next episode, I'm Doug Stevenson.